2.0 has arrived here at the Heroes Global Championship, and with Europe out of the way, they're done. I can't wait to see what the North American teams are going to do with the patch. Gilly and Dreadnought here as always. Dread, there is the possibility for a whole new world of meta. Are you expecting any big changes to take place today?
I mean, I think it's going to happen, right? What is the big change is the biggest thing that we got to be asking ourselves, and one that stands out to me is Uther. Uther got a major rework here with the 2.0 patch. He might rise towards the top of the world of supporting once again, you know, like he used to.
Yeah, it'll be great to see if he can give armor just to everybody at his leisure. Cassia has been showing up in every big region so far, and most notably for MVP Black. That's the only place that she's been able to get a win is in Korea. But SOA drafted her with a full blind comp, Lily and Johanna.
They did, yeah, and you know, that's what a lot of people feared when they saw Cassia originally, was like, what about the insane blind composition? But auto attackers aren't overly dominant in Heroes, and she does have some really powerful talents, but I don't think she'll maybe make as big of wakes as maybe Uther.
Well, we'll have to see if North America will want to draft her today. But speaking of North America, we're going to kick things off, as always, looking at the standings, where everybody currently sits going into this weekend. Tempo Storm is one series win away from claiming the top spot of the region and getting that free ride to the mid-season brawl happening in just a couple of months. Meanwhile, Team Naventic will be going to the Crucible, but everything else, the second spot, good spots in playoffs, the second spot in Crucible, still up for grabs.
Yeah, and you know, teams like Gale Force eSports and Freedom are really trying to make sure that they secure where they've located themselves so far. Gale Force being at that second slot, trying to make sure that they are going to be at the top of the playoffs, and then Freedom obviously trying to avoid Crucible at all costs.
Yeah, when we look at the mid-season brawl, every point for playoffs is so important, because the higher you are, the fewer series you have to play, the fewer strategies you might have to give away. For Gale Force eSports, a team we know has those very set strategies, it's super important to them that they only do have to play maybe that one match, but their spot is still available to teammate for the taking. Today's schedule and what series you have to look forward to in North America, as well as what you might have missed earlier today. Fnatic got an important 3-0 victory. They are sort of like Team 8 in that they are needing their victories to not only be solid, getting victories, but 3-0s at that. We'll talk a little more about that later on in our later match. Synergy versus Team Expert. This is the first place that we saw the double full support. Didn't quite work out for Synergy, though. Later today, Team Freedom versus Team 8. But first, Gale Force eSports versus B-Step Dread.
Yeah, and even on that double support you're referencing between Synergy and Expert, we even got a Resurrect Ariel for the first time.
I know you're hyped for that.
Since her major changes, Resurrect Ariel is now, I don't know if I want to say it's a thing. It's definitely viable now compared to what it was, but it just, where the value of that heroic stands is one that it's kind of lost to me. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, how the meta unfolds, because we have so many changes and everything affecting. You know, the next, when you nerf a specific support, you buff a certain damage dealer, and we have a lot of major changes that have come in. So what North America has landed on is going to be very exciting to see unfold.
Well, we've got a lot to look forward to, especially this first match, Gale Force eSports versus B-Step. Let's hear from the players.
With our match versus B-Step and Tempo, I think most pressure is on us to beat Tempo. B-Step, I think we should just beat without too much concern, but we prepped a lot for Tempo. Our preparation towards B-Step is definitely lower than it will be for Tempo Storm, but as far as how we play versus them, it'll be as serious as we would play versus Tempo Storm.
My team wasn't unanimous on playing on the 2.0 patch. We're usually pretty bad at the beginning of patches, so if we're skipping 2 patches ahead right now, there's going to be a lot for us to catch up on, and we're kind of worried about that for this weekend. Last time we played against Gale Force, it was also at the beginning of a patch, and it was a really close series. Came down to the final game. This time around, we're feeling a little bit more confident. We're more used to their styles, and we're just more used to each other as teammates, so I think we have an advantage this time. I don't really hold Gale Force's performance against them in the second phase of HGC. In NA, there's been a lot of crazy things happening, so we're not going to lose any respect for them, and we're going to make sure to come fully prepared.
Both teams bringing up some talking points we've got to get through. First of all, Gale Force eSports willing to say that they prepared far more for Tempo Storm than B-Step. The last time this happened was the weekend they had to play No Tomorrow on Superstars. They 3-0'd Superstars, but they lost to No Tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's weird. It feels like that means Gale Force is all inning on their positioning in the standings, that they're now willing to take what could be a risk in order to better their only chance, the small window of getting first place here and the standings, which is crazily but technically kind of possible. And so they banked on that more than they are about securing that second place spot by risking everything, studying more into their secondary opponent, not focusing on B-Step as much. It's one I wanted to see out of them, but it's one that obviously they get to decide for themselves what they want to do.
Yeah, B-Step isn't exactly a team that you can sleep on, especially with the changes that B-Step has been bringing in. But Gale Force eSports may just hope that their macro game can win out. That has traditionally been an issue for B-Step in the past, although they made huge strides in that versus No Tomorrow. So it's hard to decide. It's a hard decision for Gale Force to make. Yes, they can still take first place in the standings, but they have to beat B-Step, then beat Tempo, and then Tempo has to lose to B-Step. That's the only way that Gale Force gets there. So it's a risk, but one they're willing to take. Yeah,
and it's awesome to see that happen here. As we see for the bans on the maps, B-Step banned out Brax's holdout. Sky Tempo was removed for Gale Force, and we're going to Cursed Hollow here for game number 1, courtesy of GFE. So that means B-Step getting the option for the first pick, first ban. You know, I at first glance, knowing that we're going to 2.0, going on Cursed Hollow, nothing stands out as a crazy change other than we've seen a lot of Abathur in North America. That could still continue through 2.0.
Yeah, I think that if anything, we're going to see B-Step scared of all of those split pushers, at least making sure that they maybe have K1 Pro back onto Haka again.
Yeah.
They have been prioritizing Falstad, but Falstad is not nearly as successful for B-Step as it has been for Gale Force eSports specifically when you look at the team's win rates with them. But Abathur could be a problem for B-Step. Zagara could be a problem for B-Step if they're not willing to play her.
Yeah, and you know, even the European games today, Zagara showed herself
on this map.
Yeah, it's just the fact that Zagara is becoming a thing I thought would kind of remain isolated to the original China and then North America, the flavor that we've gotten out of it and picked up recently. But Ariel is just flat out going to be the first ban of this draft, and we know that the drafting is going to be insanely different just right out the gate. So now it's just learning what is the thought process of these teams as it's happening here. The Ariel ban, double support fear. That's the only thing I see out of that. She hasn't really been buffed enough to justify as a ban unless it's a resurrect thing, which we talked about. I'm still torn on. I'm sure it'll come up at some point in our series. It's a long talking point on debatably the most reliable and most impactful support heroic in the entire game.
You're talking about Crystal Aegis?
But it's, well, no, we're talking about just Resurrect is the most effective. 50% healing and bringing somebody back from the dead is insane. But you're also banking on your team losing at first by losing that hero, and that is where it's so hard to gauge her strength. I personally pull away from it.
What about Double Angel? Tyrael dies, goes in, Archangel's Wrath, baby, then he comes back, gets to do it again.
That's it. That's it.
We figured it out.
Tyrael's passive has made Ariel single-handedly 2.0 broken.
Oh my goodness, so many changes happening already from where we were before. Gale Force eSports banning a new Barak. No ban on Tassadar. Finally, the Tassadar changes enough to take him out of a perma-ban spot. His Plasma Shield has a lesser duration as well as shielding amount overall. You can still build into bringing that up with Kadarian Resonance, but it's exciting to see these changes coming into the draft so far. Dahaka getting picked for B-Step. They understand this is a macro game that Gale Force is hoping to get, but Gale Force got Greymane and Abathur, such a strong combination.
Yeah, they've got the strong combination and the duo that has been rising in the North American meta before 2.0. So that is going to be very comfortable for them so far. The fact that Tassadar has made it through the draft, now we have to ask ourselves the question, where does he fall? Does he even get picked up? Is he neglected completely? Personally, I feel like he's still a very valuable hero. Obviously not as big of a deal as he was. Not second ban all the time, but he sure still does have a place. Really good wave clear, still good protection, and an enabler, you know, something that not most heroes can do.
Is B-Step willing to let Gale Force eSports get Tyrael on top of that? They get Murden. Murden has been a favorite, and B-Step draft Zagara.
They drafted, man. She's a thing. She's here to stay. We'll have to look at what heroic choice she picks up, even because she can go both in this sense, especially considering they already have a global on their team with the Dahaka. She saw no changes. So this is just
the focus on split push more macro game that we've talked about before that's coming into North America. A lot more focus on macro game than we've ever seen before. Part of it could be a deny for B-Step to be able to get her and make sure that Gale Force doesn't get this insane good 4-man. Although, yeah, they could still maybe have looked at that. Ooh, Gale Force eSports is banning Cassia.
Yeah. We got a ban on her. Apparently, you know, the Greymane Abathur double is auto attacker is enough to forfeit that ban. That's really interesting to see. She is probably the hardest. I've never had a hero come into the meta or into the game, and I've had such a hard time gauging of where she's worth because she is extremely situational and very impactful in the proper situations. But how many and where that is, what map, is something that's still very, very difficult to gauge. Zeratul is going to be the ban for B-Step.
So B-Step trying to stop Gale Force eSports from maybe being able to have these forced, incredible team fights. If B-Step is truly looking to run the macro game, to be able to split push, even getting maybe Nidus Network again with Sagara, then they may find themselves lacking in the team fight department, which is funny to say for us about B-Step because B-Step has long relied on team fights, especially in the late game, for them to be able to come back. So a big change to see from B-Step, but we know they're making those kinds of changes. They have they're very focused on having a good spot in playoffs.
Yeah, no, I completely sorry. I just got a wave of ouch in my head. With what we already see drafted, because it's more relevant. Sorry, I was listening to what you're saying. It's just...
I know, I'm just wondering what a wave of ouch is.
Because it's a Tyrael Uther with an Abathur Greymane composition. The original time that Abathur Greymane became relevant is viable now. What? A
Tyrael Brightwing? They may still...
Brightwing
Do they double support with that?
Brightwing didn't see any changes.
She's global, baby.
I mean, she is a global. She is.
Solstad was still up too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like if the argument was we absolutely need the global, then Brightwing wasn't the must-go to, and she saw no changes with 2.0 either. She's got cross-supporting. She's got cross-supporting to be able to, you know, with the Tyrael, this shielding to help with what she struggles with. And don't get me wrong, one thing we do have to consider is Greymane is very good with all-in supports, and as long as you spec into the phase shielding on 7, she is a very all-in-y type support. You know, she enables the Greymane to go in, not needing the Tyrael out the gate. So what I'm trying to say is she does have more viability with this comp style than she normally does.
Do you feel like she can take phase shield, though? Because there already is Murden and Dahaka available for B-Step.
It's one of those things where it's like, normally, if you think about the Brightwing, you would say no, because the double CC, but by picking it and voluntarily moving into it with no major counter-argument, that to me screams we're looking for that huge shield. We're looking to enable the Greymane. Otherwise, why pick it there with so many other options up?
Lucio and Li Ming, the last 2 picks for B-Step. They have been playing a lot of Lucio. The Li Ming is different. Not that she's not seeing any play in North America, but we have been talking about this every single week of Part 2. She has no wins. She is 0-13 so far in NA.
And there's the Illidan.
Also, a similar draft to what Tempo Storm played on, was it Sky Temple? I think it was Sky Temple, but they've played something similar even on Cursed with having Illidan plus Greymane and then Abathur.
Yeah, no, it is. The Death Ball, just the 5-man all-in committing Death Ball composition. Not too good of counter momentum on the side of B-Step. Made Devouring Maw more appealing. Such a good isolation counter momentum tool. Everything else, though, you know, for B-Step, nothing stands out with the 2.0 patch compared to what we've seen in the past. Gale Force either. It's just very Death Ball-y. The only major changes is Brightwing. What? You know, that's the one thing I think there. I don't see the change or major argument.
Aka face. That's my argument.
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
But you're right. No, nothing with 2.0 specifically.
Yeah, this could have happened in the last patch and be equally as strange, really.
Oh, you know, I know what it is. Akaface wants to make sure that he has the Brightwing announcer with the hero for the full immersion effect.
That makes a lot of sense. When you can roleplay your hero, you're actually statistically more likely to perform better on it.
That makes sense. For those of you guys at home, make sure you're role-playing your hero the way that you type in. You've got the emotes now to help you out with that.
The most important thing is that when you're taking damage, you actually emulate that through not only the inaccuracy within your mouse clicks, but also the vocal noises that you have to make. You have to try and emulate that of like Uther as you're slowly getting Lunara poisoned to death.
I think I would pay money to hear Akaface yell, "Fight time!" Just knowing that player would be amazing.
You're right. We're missing out on something here. I'm willing to buy Akaface Brightwing Fight Time voice pack.
Just even that one vocal line to be able to play. But we're ready for game number 1, guys. Gale Force eSports versus B-Step. We're heading into Curse Hollow. See you there.
We are on Cursed Hollow here, and in the blue is going to be Gale Force eSports with Akaface on the Bright Wing. As usual, Equinox filling out the main warrior, going to be playing the Tyrael. This time we'll have Mike Udall playing the Illidan. Crowan is going to be on Greymane, and Fan will be the Abathur. That's a bit of a mix-up.
That's a shake-up, for sure. We'll talk more about that in a second. B-Step over in the red, APM support player playing Lucio. Up next, Muradin, of course, played by King Caffeine, long known for his Muradin. K1 Pro, recent role swap, now playing the melees on Dahaka. iDream will be playing Li Ming, and finally rounding it out, McIntyre will be the Zagara player.
So the fact that Fan is going to be the range, or I guess more of the flex and filling out that Abathur role is very strange. The fact that he's not on Illidan for Gale Force eSports.
Especially because when we've seen this kind of combo in the past, Fan has played Illidan and Mike has played Abathur before.
I just want to say that I love what Gale Force is already doing in this game. So with an Abathur composition, you expect front walls to go down, so they commit to theirs up on top half the map. And they do it so fast, B-Step actually wasn't looking to take out a free front wall. So because of that, Gale Force not only got the upper hand to what is really a one-sided race, but they get a free forward on top of it. Very, you know, standard play coming out from Gale Force, but B-Step not mirroring them cost them a lot.
And B-Step was trying to maybe get a push going in the mid as well as bot, and McIntyre did single-handedly take down towers and the gate in the bottom lane, but it is not anything near being able to take out a fort that early in the game, especially because later on, that is a boss lane where Gale Force eSports may be able to steal a boss away and have that threat and keep.
We didn't talk about...
Are you talking about Judgment? Oh wait, what?
Fans level 1. Going with Locust. It is not that version of Abathur build has not existed as the norm since he got infinite nerfed over like a year ago.
It's survival instincts, but he may still get hat talents later on, symbiote talents.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily committing fully. We'll know right now if he picks up Adrenal Overload.
It's just a huge change already. When it comes to the build at level 1, there's the Adrenal Overload to be able to be hat build split pusher.
Yeah, so it's his change over getting more damage from Locust Nest?
Yeah. Or just going for the W. Yeah,
lands.
Which is the reason that's the standard across the board is it's good for hat fights. It's also good for split pushing. It's good at everything,
yeah,
right?
It gives cooldown reduction and range, which then you pair on later on when you get things like Soma Transference at level 13 so that you could heal the target, as well as maybe even get some slows if you want to go into that 16. Maybe then this is going to be a hybrid build to continue on later on.
It will be. Essentially specking into a minimum of the 16 and one of the two 13s for the Locust itself. So you drop the Locust Swarm, I don't know what that word was, Swarm, which is not conveniently a Nubarak. Get them pushing for you, and the entire time you have a hat, Adrenal Overload on top of the Illidan Death Ball-y composition with the Tyrael, and you're really making pretty big plays there. Onto the map itself, allow you to get that huge split push.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that build will take shape, especially even into 22 if we still get Hive Mind. First Tribute has come and gone, picked up by B-Step, but that is to be expected with Gale Force eSports having that Abathur.
I really want to know which 13 we're going to see Fan move into with that. Just because the level 1, it gives you the increased health, which makes you more likely to spec into Cleave at 13. Cleave actually, depending on where the wave is located and what it's attacking into, Siege is better.
Than having the long range, more damage.
Than the auto, yeah, than the increased range. It actually rids of minion waves. It pushes harder, which is weird to say because it does less structural damage. It's just not as good as sieging up, but it's way better at escorting minions at the rate at which it moves. It's just going to be awesome to try and keep track of that. But the rest of this is very, you know, 1.0-esque. It is standard Heroes of the Storm here, other than maybe the Zagara, but we saw signs of her before. Not too crazy of draft.
I do want to postulate before we get to heroic abilities that there is possibility that Tyrael picks Judgment here. It's something that happens in Europe versus Lucio specifically.
Yeah.
Gale Force eSports could try to pick that up. Mule at level 7 for Abathur. So Gale Force making sure they can keep their structures alive while they continue to get an advantage, trying to keep B-Step from getting the experience to catch back up.
And what this boss is going to, it's going to be free here. B-Step is committed 0 resources to it. And with the Abathur hat, having the Illidan, having the Greymane, some of the best bossers in the entire game.
3 can
They're
try
collapsing.
to stop this, but it was not in time. Gale Force eSports is so fast to objectives, and that is giving them a massive advantage already in this game number 1 over B-Step.
Yeah, they're committing every single individual when they commit. That's a dead beat, or excuse me, King Caffeine, B-Step member there. But what they are kind of playing is a bit of the question, is it better to, so let's say you want a night camp. Do you commit all 5 people to night camp, take 1 second to kill it, and then all rotate people back to their respective lanes? Or do you keep 3 people in those lanes, send 2 people to get it, and it takes 5 seconds to capture? What is more effective than the next, right?
Right.
And honestly, late game, you look at it and you're like, well, you're always grouped, so it's going to be capturing it that way. But even early game, if you can get away with collapsing those resources, it's just usually the information you give is way too much to where it's like, oh, they're doing this, we can easily outplay it this early on.
Yeah, maybe a little of disrespect for B-Step's ability to see that quickly and make the right responses as fast as Gale Force eSports. But that has been one of the best things that Gale Force has had going for them throughout Part 2, is how quickly they're able to make this and their focus on objective plays. They are 1-1 in Tribute so far. Gale Force still with a healthy level lead. They picked up both bosses, and as we mentioned before, being able to take down the fort on top there meant that it was already able to start looking at the keep towers. B-Step do not have heroic abilities. They're trying to pick up this Tribute before heroics are here for Gale Force eSports.
It's not going to happen.
No.
Not with Equinox there. With the level 4 and the cooldown always being able to delay, it is so valuable for Tyrael here on Cursed Hollow, and that is going to be heroic choices. The Hunt was picked up here for Mike Udall there on the Illidan.
We're still waiting for Tyrael.
Tyrael's yet to pick it up. They are going to dive onto K1 Pro, though. No heroic.
The Hunt, there it is. Michael Udall dives in. K1 Pro uses his burrow, but there's no heroic abilities to try to help out B-Step in a tough spot for fighting. And still, Gale Force holds on to that Tyrael 10.
I really like the fact that they are waiting on that 10 choice, just because it's one of the few times that actually both heroics are very viable. They have, number 1, the double melee deathball composition into a Brightwing, which is normally like, okay, you need the sanctification, the pseudo-supporting, be able to help out the Brightwing. It complements Greymane and Illidan so much. But then you have the argument, well, Brightwing, with her teleport, can dive in with Tyrael, with Judgment, on top of the Hunt, right? So suddenly, the only indication that this is a Judgment game is actually the Brightwing pick. That is the only thing that makes me go, this is 100% going to be Judgment, is based on the fact that Brightwing, with you have other option, was to commit to the kill when they dive. You Judgment on top of the Lucio. Anybody else who goes to Peel, you always poly off the kill target, not the kill target, and you secure that as Judgment and the Hunt flies onto that target. But it's just most of the time we see teams hold. It's more of like a, isn't this clever? We might be going the less popular one, and then they eventually pick it when they need it. This is the only time, I think, almost ever I've seen both be equally viable, and I go, I don't really know.
Oh, here's another dive from Gale Force eSports, finding K1 Pro caught out Polymorph to slow him down. K1 Pro is heading the opposite direction. He's just trying to buy as much time as he can, but he used a lot of resources for that. So when he pops back up, he won't have adaptation, and there's a tribute fight about to start with Gale Force eSports on the point completely. There's nobody from B-Step even at all to try to stop this curse from happening.
And they forfeited the curse. What do they lose in the meantime, as bottom and top 4 have already fallen? With 13 closing in, Gale Force here is going to be able to pressure out what could be a keep. It's going to be a tough defense for B-Step. But they do have Zagara. That is a major selling point. The fact that they were going to have her kind of able to use that Nidus Network to get the side soak, and the Giants are going to hold off some of the pressure that's happening in that bottom lane.
There it is, Judgment. As level 13 talents came online, Equinox was like, yeah, I guess I should probably pick a heroic now.
There they go. There's the Judgment. There is the Hunt, and that is one deadly Ming during a curse as well. So even less defensive tools available for B-Step, as Gale Force looks like they set their focus onto the keep, even drop Fan's clone to make sure they get it.
And this works so well because APM doesn't have cleanse as Lucio, which is why we're seeing that Judgment type composition in Europe as well. 3-level lead for Gale Force eSports as they take down the first keep of the game. Yes, Zagara has Nidus Network and she would love to be pushing, but when you are pushed this far back, it's not the same kind of effect. Abathur is going to be able to do so much. Speaking of Abathur,
there it is.
Level 13 Bombard Strain. So we're looking at the long range with more damage.
It's going to be able to sustain longer for the duration, and it puts a lot of split pressure. It's not even really going to be needed, just because Gale Force obviously being so far ahead into this game. But what that does do is, often when we talk about Abathurs struggling for the early game and everything else, but what they do really well is when you win, you can win really, really hard with an Abathur style play, especially with this build, because then you get as equal value of the hat and the clone in the team fights, but you get insane split pushing anytime that you can drop those locusts. Oh, excuse me, post 16 gets insane split pushing, and they're only a level away here. So Gale Force eSports full control of this game. There's very little B-Step can really do to come back, especially considering they picked in the Nidus. It will be able to stop some of the Abathur free soak and maybe experience disadvantage, but it really does cripple their team fight, especially into such a absurdly bursty, dive-oriented comp that Gale Force has.
Yeah, the sound barriers is really what it comes down to, right? Making sure that he can hit that on point. Even then, maybe not being able to save. You saw how fast Li Ming blew up. It was before we could even get over there.
Yeah, the only way I can really see that changing is post 20, which is very unrealistic for B-Step to be able to make it to 20 in this game. I feel like because post 20, you could go for the shorter cooldown on Lucio and then try and be safer in his positioning, bank on the Li Ming getting picked, for instance.
B-Step is trying to keep an eye on this boss because they really don't want to let a boss go because they're just running out of structures at this point. But the longer that they're hanging out there and not being able to soak all of the lanes fully, we're seeing them move back up to mid now. The further behind they're getting experience. Gale Force almost has that sweet spot of 16 to 13, and realizing that is going to start working on their boss. Seeing this, I'm wondering what B-Step is going to do. Do they try to contest, or are they trying to just get their own boss? They're rotating in, but the rotation's happening so slowly that Gale Force eSports has almost taken down this boss and can try to contest.
Yeah, for a minute there, it looked like King Caffeine was questioning it, but once he was confident his team was going to be late, it looks like they returned towards their own boss here. Sitting at the 50% HP, this is going to be an easy rotation for Gale Force to be able to move up. They have the 16 mark, and they're actually splitting here with both of their globals. Brightwing, Abathur, Illidan, all kind of in this middle part of the map.
Holy ground.
No way he gets this by himself. He has no sanctification on point. There goes the sound barrier. Mike Udall coming in with the hunt. Equinox is immediately killed. Go for the throw, ends up getting the pick. The clone coming up. Everybody joins, and we've got ourselves a fight on the boss pit. His fan ends up dying.
That drag was amazing to get the kill on Fan still. Akafi is on the point, but is going to blink heal out to the clone. Fan runs away, catches iDream. Cocktail goes out, but iDream dodged it.
And they make it out. The boss was captured by B-Step. I'm just amazed Gale Force even took the risk on that rotation after half committing people to bottoming and getting it so late. If that was a sanctification, I can understand it, right? But the fact that that was a judgment solo Tyrael on point without that 3-second pause button to buy that time.
He did try to judgment off the point on someone else, but got stalled out of it. So then him going down plus the kill, taking out Fan. B-Step are able to get their own boss, keep Gale Force eSports from getting a double boss play, and this bought time for B-Step to get to level 16. They still haven't lost any more keeps. They even defended their bottom keep.
Yeah, that was huge for B-Step here. The fact that they did not lose another keep, they have the 16 talent here. They're suddenly back in this game. It's not even by any means, but it is very realistic that the next team fight, if they win, could snowball them to be the ones with the experience advantage, because they've got Curse.
Right.
They have bosses are going to be spawning relatively soon as well.
Rejuvenescencia now here. That's a huge one for a Lucio team.
Very much is. Oh man, I thought for a moment we saw somebody about to get caught out, but it wasn't the case. Calf is going to be here, make this rotation over. Brightwing still joining up on top with those Giants. They go out onto the Illidan.
Mike Udall slowed down. Akaface phase shifts in. Still have Abathur pushing in top with Mercenary Camp. And there's Mercenary Camp pressure in the mid where there are also catapults against B-Step. So B-Step under fire to try to get this tribute so they can make the curse, whereas Gale Force eSports have time to try to delay.
First delay is going to happen here for Equinox. Oh man, Abathur's going to be a problem. Yeah. That top keep is 100% dead just by leaving them up there with that giant camp. So B-Step has to act quickly, and with the stall of Haragic reforging, the channel is going to be started, completed there for K1 Pro. Hunt happens, sound barrier's dropped. It lands on top of 4. Cap Dwartos is in. Judgment onto the backline dive. Everybody goes in, and immediately APM is just blown up, but they are not done. iDream quick to follow.
2 down. Crowan gets out, stays alive. Fan chasing K1 Pro away while the rest handle King Caffeine. Zagara has already gone through the Nidus network and is back to trying to stop Abathur in the top lane. King Caffeine doing his best to contend with Mike Udall and Akaface while the entirety of Gale Force eSports attempts to chase him down and get another kill, a staggered death on top of it.
The staggered death leaving 30 seconds difference between the death of Li Ming and Lucio. We'll see what GFE can do with that 30 seconds here.
Man, this is a frustrating curse. B-Step got the curse, but gets nothing from it.
They get zero, absolutely nothing. Not even the fact that bottom is the most pushing out wave, and Abathur with his mule is going to conveniently be able to heal that up back to full. Bottom keep, second keep falling now for Gale Force eSports, and only furthering the distance between them and the experienced bars of B-Step. They're going to be able to pick up their 20 talent here very, very soon.
Yeah, losing Calf meant that B-Step couldn't try to get a fight before Gale Force got 2 Storm Talons. Unless they can catch somebody right now, but Gale Force have retreated far back, just waiting until they can get 20. Abathur up in the top, soaking versus that, and it's almost here. Wonder what's... I'm looking to see what Fan gets at 20.
This is a really cool moment for Gale Force eSports with their composition and the way that the map is kind of just played out. There is a very small time difference, not that small, 30 seconds on the bottom boss, a minute and 10, so about 40 seconds difference between the 2 bosses, and the only keep left is top. So what you can actually do here, it's really a lot of fun with this Abathur build, is baby out the wave up on top. Dahaka the whole time is going to stay up there. Brightwing being up there to help the Abathur. You just prep the wave, and then you have 40 seconds of you being allowed to power play that top keep while the bottom boss is danced around, and then you can force a free boss play or a keep trade-off for B-Step no matter what, just purely off of your locust pressure up on top.
I think they're going to try to do that, but maybe even get a kill on K1 Pro at the same time to make it even harder for B-Step to stop. Here he goes. There's the hunt. Blown up is Dahaka before he can do anything at all. And Gale Force eSports are like, whoa, why take the time here? We could just push it down.
Yeah, and with this pick off, the boss might not even be fast enough. We'll see if Gale Force stops at the keep. They do. So it's not game yet, as they do have the opportunity to defend if you are a B-Step fan, especially with the clone going down. They see the boss just now taken as they've already moved up to this core. Keep in mind, it's down to 90% already off that catapult sprint pressure. They make it out.
Smite for movement speed away. Illidan took nowhere to hide at level 22. Unlimited range for the hunt, so now you really are not going to be able to get away from Illidan.
With the boss pressuring on bottom, B-Step has to figure out what they want to do with their boss. Equinox is already shown up on top, showing that he will be scouting if they want to get it started. Without the 20, it's a big deterrent to be able to start a power play like this. Tribute spawning on the bottom half of the map. You know they want to be like, okay, Gale Force, you can rotate to that. We'll take this boss. Thank you. But again, no power spike for B-Step. And when they lost all of their curse, they haven't even opened up the map to maybe make a power play elsewhere. So this is going to be a Tribute going over to Gale Force. And no boss yet to start for B-Step.
B-Step have both Zagara and Dahaka to try to soak. But against this Illidan and the amount of times that K1 Pro has been caught out now by this full, pretty much global composition of Gale Force, as long as Tyrael is around or Greymane, maybe even not even needed if we can get there fast enough with Polymorph, it dissuades B-Step from split soaking with either Zagara or Dahaka, and it's put them just back in their base and taking a long, long time to get to 20.
Yeah, it's just, it's nowhere to even be found, you know? And that felt like we were saying that Tribute spawn ago. The fact that B-Step hasn't moved out for any of that soak, just off of that Judgment Synced Brightwing bomb. Speaking of, there goes the hunt onto Li Ming. She teleports out. Sound barrier is going to be used. That is not a winning trade. Judgment goes in onto the Lucio. Equinox quickly realizes he wants out, but B-Step members are split. K1 Pro has already fallen. Calf gets polymorphed, but he survives. And it looks like Gale Force here is going to be able to move on to this core.
And Gale Pro just gets obliterated, even as Dahaka, what you would think to be a tankier solution for the team against that kind of blow-up. Gale Force eSports bringing in the Brightwing, the Judgment, and Illidan to win game number 1.
Yeah, and the one thing I really like about that game, a lot of it was when we saw in the draft, when you have a major pick where you're like, this doesn't follow the pattern, but when you can see in the game why it was done, what the entire thought process of the draft was, right? Because that came in as their 4th pick, leaving up only the Illidan, so where they had the opportunity to not fully commit to the polybomb death composition, but once they saw so much focus on split pushing, they were like, this is very easy to commit just with the Illidan, the Hunt, dive, look to be able to get those picks. It's just really awesome to leave that. Again, saving that last slot for flexing the composition, but also picking that pick before it, leaving some room to counter either direction the opponents can go.
And we know that B-Step has been playing a lot of Dahaka and having focus on globals to try to keep them at least in line experience-wise with their opponents. But Gale Force eSports has been a global team for forever. If there's one team who's going to know how to counter this type of play, it's Gale Force. So would you like to see maybe a switch up of choosing a battleground that is smaller so that B-Step doesn't have to worry as much about that?
I don't know if that's needed necessarily. You could. It's the safe route to go, right? You never have to worry about, can we get the split push composition without being afraid of getting picked off left and right. But I could see you also committing to a large map, still going to globals, but banning out some of those that you felt like were too big of a problem to be able to match. Like, you can't rid of the gray main, but you definitely can when it comes to like the Tyrael picking up yourself, looking for the ban. Or just taking, again, it's not an unwinnable strategy into it. It's more of like, well, if you all in on globals, we just pick off the global. Bring the fight to the global, they're always alone, never the other way around, right? So it just makes a lot of sense that they did that. It's being a little bit more patient and heads up in your draft if you're going to move for a global route, the same way we saw B-Step do here.
Yeah, it's hard to take the fight to the type of composition that Gale Force had with Judgment, especially the Hunt. They get to choose where the fight's going to happen. Well, that closes out game number 1. We're going to head to a break. After this, game number 2.